Hi, everybody. I want you to get this power-packed notion from Esther chapter 4. These abbreviated messages are meant to increase the impact even as we diminish the time, because chapter 4 of Esther works in 2021, even though she was BC. She was before Jesus, before Christ. In chapter 4, what's happened is that Esther is now finding out the gravity of the situation. Our bad guy, Haman, has issued a decree for genocide. All the Jews shall be killed. And particularly, he hated her cousin, the man who had reared her, Mordecai. But it takes about 45 days for riders to get the decree all the way around the Persian Empire. So about a month and a half, 2 months in, everybody knows the Jews are going to be eliminated. And nobody can get to the king, to Xerxes. Well, I shouldn't say nobody, one person. So we pick up the story in chapter 14 where Mordecai is saying to her, Esther, girl, you have got to get to the king. If we read, it says in chapter 4, verse 10, that Esther says to her attendant, go back and give this message to Mordecai. All the king's officials and even the people of the provinces know that anyone who appears before the king in the inner court without being invited is doomed to die unless the king holds out his gold scepter. And the king has not called for me for 30 days. So she's saying, maybe he forgot about me. He has lots of harems, lots of women, I dare say lots of wives. But she's not sure where she falls in all of that. So he gave Esther's message, and here's what Mordecai says. Don't think for a moment that because you're in the palace, you will escape when all the other Jews are killed. If you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place, but you and your relatives, he's talking about himself, will die. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for such a time as this? What I've been trying to tell people is the wisdom contained in this story, you've heard it from your grandma. You've heard it from our heroes. You know, heroes are an interesting lot. They dare to do and dare to say what the rest of us don't dare to do or say. For instance, you've heard the notion from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Here's what he said, and this is the theme of Esther chapter 4. Dr. King is quoted as saying, quote, one has the moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. Part of the dilemma that Esther models for us is, what do you do when it's legal but it's not moral? You disobey. Dr. King taught us that in the 60s. But we have to learn it. I believe that followers of Jesus are going to have to learn that sometimes the Holy Spirit doesn't move until you disobey. Can you get that into your heart? We're so, the religion that you've seen modeled is one that goes along and gets along. But I'm telling you, this book that's on this phone, the Bible that's in my library of physical pages and leather bound, that book, that revolutionary treatise, isn't about obeying humans. It's about obeying God and disobeying humans when they don't line up with God. I believe in that. It's not just Dr. King. Even before him, Henry David Thoreau. Here's what Thoreau said. Thoreau said, I was not born to be forced. I will breathe after my own fashion and let us see who is the strongest. You get it. Esther is showing us that every Jesus person has to look around and say, is this the time? Is this the time that instead of obeying and saying, okay, I'm with you, maybe every once in a while there's a moment that says, I don't think I'm with you anymore. Here's the balance. The balance is, what's the cost and what's the cause? And most of the time, the cause is not compelling enough to pay a great cost. But sometimes the cause is so great that you'll pay any cost, even your life. That's where Esther is. Here's a truth that I taught this weekend, and I want you to walk away with it. What you do not defend, you will lose every time. Can you believe we had 4 experiences, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people showed up. And you know what? Not one of them took the challenge that I gave them. What I said was, I will keep the doors of this house unlocked for 48 hours. And I will put on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter that my doors are unlocked because I believe in the goodness of humankind. But I said I would only do it if they all agreed to do it with me. And I asked them to hold their hands. And of all those 4 experiences and all those people, not one other person agreed to do it with me. Why is that? Well, you do know why it is. Because in here, even though we want to believe the best about humankind, we know that not all of humankind can be trusted, and that what you don't defend, you will lose. So what you have to do is use your authority in your spheres of life to defend, sometimes even to offer your life for what you really believe to be true. So the famous verse of the whole story of Esther is in chapter 4, and it's verse 14. And I read it, but let me read it again. Here's what it says. Mordecai says, if you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place, but you and your relatives will die. And then he says, who knows if perhaps you were made queen for such a time as this. Now, I have heard that sentence preached on by countless people. And they always emphasize such a time, as if it was a timing verse that could be for such a time as this, for such a time. What if it's not about for such a time? What if this isn't the timing verse? I'd like to give you an alternative option, a minority report, a little counter to the common wisdom. I believe the key word here is the word queen, because that is her exclusive area of authority. For perhaps you were made queen for such a time as this. Because Mordecai couldn't get in there. There's 1.2 million, 1.3 million Jews in Persia at that time, and none of them had the access Esther had. Esther may not have felt confident in her access, but she was the girl with access because she was queen. It might cost her, but she was queen, her area of authority. Here's the deal. Here's the deal now. For the rest of your week, identify your areas of authority. Because the sentence for me would look like this. For perhaps you were made pastor for such a time as this. Pastor, that's the thing, that I'm the pastor for this moment. For perhaps I was made an American citizen. That's an authority I have for such a time as this. For perhaps I was made Anne's husband for such a time as this. For perhaps I was made a father. I have a father, so perhaps I was made a son for such a time as this, or a nephew to help my aunt. You get it? Do you get it? Do you get it? You're not without authority. And find some moment, you will find the moment, where the cause, your place of authority, will lead you to take great risk. I think that moment's coming. Some of you have already faced moments like that. That's why you're heroes to the people around you, your family, your friends. But I think for a lot of us, those moments are still coming. You can find courage in here, titanium in your spine, because this world needs more heroes, more Esthers. All right, there it is. Short, sweet, powerful. Live it out. Find your area of authority and disobey. Disobey the common wisdom. Disobey the culture. Disobey the wicked order. And watch the Holy Spirit move as soon as you become countercultural. This is sign language, means I love you.